Nassaumen Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Writers.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 40 of the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Writers Podcasting Network. I'm James Nichols, and as always, I'm here with my good buddy, John Zello. What's up, pal?
Not a whole lot. Getting some energy from getting hockey back on TV in one day while you're listening to this. As you're listening to this, or tonight. Tonight you have some games on.
That's right.
Islanders are back in action. Thursday, I was looking at the schedule actually, just like, I'm gonna plan my weekend. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, Thursday, Saturday, Monday. I'm like, oh my god, I miss this so much.
Nope. Don't do anything. Stay home. Turn the TV on. Put the games on. Doesn't matter which game, any game. Just put them on because hockey is back. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch so much.
Yeah,
it's gonna be very not healthy.
My fiance is gonna be like, "Where have you been?" I'll be like, "Leave me alone. Just go somewhere else. I got stuff I got to do. Your time will come." Let's get to around the league. There's been a couple of announcements this week. A couple of breaking news stories. Starting with the league announcing the NHL Outdoors games that will be happening at Lake Tahoe in February. I believe the dates are going to be February 20th and the 21st. It will feature the Avalanche versus the Golden Knights on February 20th and the Flyers versus the Bruins on February 21st. Both games will be at 2 p.m. Central Time on NBC.
Did you see the pictures?
Yeah. Looks
or like the mock-ups or whatever they're doing. They're not playing on the lake. They're playing next to the lake. I didn't think that they were actually going to do it, but in the back of my head, I'm like, man, I kind of wish they just like.
It's the scenery.
It's the scenery. It's going to be cool. Like I said, that picture that I saw, I believe it was on Instagram from, we put it in our story, on our Instagram. It looks super cool.
Really cool. The NHL's worst kept secret. I mean, we've known about this for a long time, but
they dropped this in like December. They started talking about this a little bit.
Yeah, there was no official word until now, but it's officially happening, and it's officially really cool. There won't be any fans in attendance. I know that much.
Yeah, I honestly have to look up exactly where it is. I don't know where Lake Tahoe is. I feel like a terrible student of America.
Didn't you work in a museum?
I'm like a history guy. No, I don't know. I just like, I don't know. You don't know like every lake in the United States. But it's gonna be cool. Like I think they had to get creative. They had to cancel the Winter Classic, which is really big for them ratings wise.
Yeah.
So this will be, only a month into the season, which is definitely new. They usually have it 3 months in, October to January 1st or whatever. They have a few months to get things rolling before they do this. So it'll be a lot of games played in a short period, but hopefully any fans, they need to get fans in as quickly as possible. New fans or just kind of the casual fan. They need them to get in and watch this game. It's good for sponsors. It's good for revenue. So I kind of get why they're doing this. It's going to be a lot of prep. It's going to cost a pretty penny, I imagine.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. I'm glad they're doing it.
It's already shaping up to what's going to be an interesting year. And add on top of that, today the NHL announced, and yesterday as you're listening to this, but the NHL announced that COVID-19 testing results from the first week of training camp have come back, and 27 players with confirmed positives, including 17 on the Dallas Stars. So already a little bit of insight as to how this year is going to go. You might see a lot more of this. We're not going to have the bubbles like we did with the playoffs. It's not going to be exactly the same. They're going to try. They're going to do as much as they can. And in fact, I was listening to Ray Ferraro the other day talk about his experience in the bubble for the World Juniors. And he was like, it's crazy. He's like, I leave my hotel room. I walk downstairs to the lobby, through the front door, straight into a car. It brings me to the front door of the arena. I walk out of the car, straight into the arena and back. And then that's it. Like there's no existence. And it's not going to be like that for this season. It's going to be a little more, not, I shouldn't say free, but it's going to be less restrictive.
The players. I mean, and each team they're going to have their own policies. I'm sure if you're caught doing something, well, who was the NBA player that, he was already kind of with the Nets. I was already in and out. And there was a video that surfaced of him at like a birthday party or something. You don't want that. Certainly not the Islanders. Lou will come down. You will
Oh,
be
yeah.
exiled. They'll never find your body.
Yeah.
I feel like Andy Graziano would say something like that. But the each team, I'd imagine, has their own protocols. I imagine there might even be fines within the team. I don't know how that works, but it's not going to be much more exciting other than that when you are home, which will be pretty often, that they'll be able to go to their actual home, apartment, condo, house. They're not traveling and staying in hotels and things like that. They're not really able to go out anyway,
Right.
especially on Long Island in New York. There's not a lot open. Things are kind of
Right.
back, closing down.
Right.
And not that you should be that comfortable doing stuff if it was open,
Right.
Especially with everything indoors. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be like a bubble, but it's going to be, rink, bus, home instead of hotel, bubble.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. But it's it's more exposure than to what they were doing before. So
potentially. And that's kind of, you can't really have people over their partners and their kids, especially if the kids are going to school. If
Yeah.
that's, something that's in that district or that particular school is having them go back.
Right.
What is the partner a teacher? Are they going into school? What do they, what do they do for a living? So,
and here's the interesting thing too. I think out of Boston. Yeah, this came out of Boston. The head coach is looking to keep both Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak away from each other as much as possible, just because of the possibility that if one of them catches it, they both get it, and then they're short two goaltenders. So it's smart, in my opinion. You have the least amount of depth there. So,
well, that was what people were saying about the taxi squad in general, that those 6 players or however many players they have on their taxi squad kind of are separate. I don't know how they get their own ice, or is it going to be like in the bubble where they're kind of doing their own thing most of the time?
They might
that
be,
seems really rough, and not doing drills with the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
Might wear on them mentally, but B, that their timing is going to be a little off. It's just not the same skating with 4 other guys versus skating with your team and kind of going through the paces.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, how they handle that exactly, because I didn't hear anything about Trotz having Varlamov and Sorokin on 2 ends of the rink at all times, and
No, but
2
I
separate
imagine
buildings at all
Schneider.
times.
I imagine Schneider
Sure.
is going to be far, far away.
Sure.
Like that whole taxi squad will be far away.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think even mentally that this is going to be wearing on them, and I wonder how that'll affect players. It's not a bubble, and you're able to be with your family, and that's definitely a good space to recharge.
Yeah.
But it's still not, your ability to do something is still so limited. You're still video calling with people. You're not able to go see them in person, and I'm sure during the season they're not going to want to risk that stuff. So,
Right.
and you hope, and clearly, all right, I don't want to say clearly, something happened in Dallas. Someone messed up, or there was an exposure somewhere, and someone brought it in.
It's possible.
It could have been from. I don't think they said like this is the impetus of it. This is the cause of it. There was a certain player or a staff member or something. So it's super important for them to just be careful moving forward. So
definitely
that team, that's a 17 out of 25 positives came from one team. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
They have to be so much more careful.
The crazy thing is the puck hasn't even dropped, and this is how difficult it's already been to maintain this kind of thing. So,
and they're delaying things, and this is why that schedule is the way that it is, so that they can fit games in. But now that entire division, all those games have been condensed. It's not just the Dallas Stars. Now every team, the other 7 teams in the division also need to play the Dallas Stars, and they have to fit that into the schedule somewhere. So any kind of like extra days here and there are rules with the NHLPA and how many days off a month the player is supposed to have. So then, that creates a nightmare for the scheduler. Even though it's a condensed schedule, a shortened season, it's not really that long a period. So they have their work cut out for them. I haven't seen any announcement on what that looks like so far, but I suppose they have some time.
On a brighter note, and we've discussed this before, and we had a feeling that this might happen, and it here it comes. Brendan Burke was announced as one of the number of play-by-play broadcasters for this season on NBC. He's getting a little bit more exposure to national television, and it scares us a little bit because we don't want to lose him as our official
He's our guy.
Islanders play-by-play announcer. But great for him. Great news for Brendan. Congratulations to him. We had him on, and we even said it right to him. We're like, hey, we're a little worried we're gonna we're gonna lose you here to national television, but all the best to you. You deserve everything that's coming your way. So
it's a good mix of people, and I can't recall the names off the top of my head, and I kind of like that it's maybe that it's not just one, like a Doc Emmerich that is the guy for all the games. I kind of like that it's a mix, so you get the different personalities from around the league, kind of get to know them a little bit better, because you don't get to watch a lot of those broadcasts, and it's interesting to hear. In Canada they have their maybe handful of guys, the Jim Hughesons and that kind of thing. So it'll be cool to hear that through NBC this season, for it to just be a little bit different. And for people to hear Brendan Burke, I mean, I think if they've watched any NBC games over the last year or two, they have heard him. But it'll be cool on our end, so it's not just like who's the guy from Philly, the Comcast guy or whatever. He does it sometimes, and then maybe there's a few others, but it'll be, like I said, it'll just be cool to get that mix of different broadcasters in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure, that this all has to do with what's going on in the world right now. There's probably a reason why there's a handful of people and not just, one like Doc Emmerich going around and doing all these games. It's probably to contain this as much as they can, but it's still, it's great for the game.
I wonder if it's one or two per division. So they're continually just traveling within their own division, just like the players are, and you don't have any kind of cross contamination. We should have looked this up. If only we had a hockey podcast. Maybe that would have we would have had the frame of mind to do that. But I didn't think of that to begin with. Forget about ahead of time for as we plan the show. But I'll have to take a look at that, because that would make a lot of sense.
But puck drop tomorrow, so something that we thought would be pretty cool was to break down the divisions and talk about which teams that we thought would be the best in the division versus the worst in the division. We have in our notes East first, but I'm going to go ahead and skip the East for now. We're going to go back to them and do them.
We'll get to them at the end as we go into the island.
Yeah, but so let's start with the Central. Who do you have as your best team coming out on top of the Central Division?
How can you bet against Tampa? Even without Kucherov, they're still really good. Unless, when we saw this with the Islanders, we've seen this with a lot of teams, unless they get an injury bug or worse, and that slows them down, there's not a whole lot that will slow them down in that division. We've seen what they can do over, a long season. We saw how they played throughout the playoff bubble last summer. They're really good. And now it's another year. They've played another year together. They found success together. They know how to win after all those years kind of building up to that Stanley Cup that they just won. It's going to be really hard to stop that train. They're very, very good. And like I said, even without Kucherov, unless, Stamkos and Point and things start to unravel a little bit, but I don't really see that happening.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm going to agree with you. How do you not pick this team? Again, like you said, no Kucherov, but they're still incredibly deep. And
like Vasilevsky would just have to have like a Bobrovsky-like
that's what I'm saying.
Regression this year for them to just,
and that's not going to happen. He's not even hit his peak yet, in my opinion. I think he's 25. Maybe
he's young.
I think he might be younger than that. Don't ask me how Brisebois kept the band together, but he did. I mean, the Kucherov LTIR thing helped out, and I do think.
I mean, it's not over $9 million, right? Is it 9.8? Yeah, it's a lot.
And the crazy thing is, if and when, obviously, I have them making the playoffs, but that $9 million doesn't matter once the playoffs start. So if he comes back, he can get in the lineup.
That was
free
like the St. Louis Blues did that with Tarasenko,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So it's like I'm not. There's no way I'm sitting here saying that the Lightning were like, oh yeah, we'll just put Kucherov on LTIR. They did not want him out all year, but
No,
conveniently, when the playoffs start, he'll be able to come back no problem, and he's
you hope
supposed to be
he's
right.
supposed to be
You
ready,
hope
but
he's
you hope
supposed to
that
be
he's
ready.
ready.
So they have possibly Kucherov coming back for the playoffs. They have Stamkos, Point, Sorelli. They have just a number of really good players on that team.
Dude, their third line is so good.
In my opinion,
that was one of the harder things to watch against our.
Yeah.
Like they were playing the Islanders game against the Islanders. It was so hard. It was so frustrating to be on the other end of that.
Yeah.
Because they were just playing so well.
In my opinion, they have two number one defensemen. Victor Hedman is obviously their number one, but Mikhail Sergachev is getting right up there. He's very talented. He is very good, not only in his own end, but he knows how to move the puck and he knows how to create chances from the blue line. So he's very good as well. And like we said before, Vasilevsky is the best goaltender in the NHL right now. There's no doubt about it. That team is
so
just
big.
It's just ridiculous. And that division is kind of soft at this point right now. They took Boston out, Buffalo, whatever, but Boston's not there anymore. Which leads me to asking you, what is the worst team in this division? Because is it so clear cut?
I mean, it's got to be Chicago, right? How do we? They just lost so many players.
Yeah.
Unless I think you saw Palfy on the Islanders still score 40, 45 goals, 43 goals on terrible teams.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if DeBrincat and Kane, and they have another young guy that's like amazing that kind of came out of nowhere too.
Kubalik.
These guys can still have good seasons. I don't,
Yeah.
like even last season or the season before, Kane still had 100 points.
Right.
Like he's not deteriorating all of a sudden just because he's over 30 or just at 30 years old. So I still think they can have a good season. It's just they're just going to be swamped in that division. I don't know how they can make it out. I mean, like just Dallas, Columbus, Carolina, Tampa alone, right? And then Nashville is maybe the fifth team. Carolina is an interesting one in that division, frankly. They'll definitely, to me, Dallas, Carolina are probably jockeying for third, and then Columbus is kind of just letting them duke it out and collecting wins along the way. And then
I have this feeling that if anyone's going to give Tampa a run for their money, it's Carolina this year. I really do.
They're very good. They're kind of the next Tampa, where they're biding their time. They're playing really well. I don't know how much stock I put into their run last year after the year before, doing pretty well and making it to the Eastern Conference Final. But they're on the cusp. They have a really good team. They have a really good formula. They have a good strategy.
Yeah.
Brendan Moore is a good coach. Their goaltending is what's going to cause an issue for them. That's where they need some help. And I'm surprised someone like, Grice going to Carolina, playing behind a defense that's, I don't want to say plays similar to the Islanders, but are tough. They're a tough defensive team. I think he really would have done well there. He might not have got an offer.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's kind of one of the, you think about the goalies that were kind of waiting to be moved around, like even Holtby behind that team, I feel plays pretty well. But then there's a lot of teams that just kind of decided that their goaltending was okay and they're going to move forward. So
yeah,
I don't know what happened. And this is just a weird year. So I don't know that it's worth taking any of these decisions like it's something that they wanted to do.
Yeah. As for the worst team in the Central, I'm going to agree with you, though. It is definitely Chicago. No Taves, no Crawford. Two of those guys right there. I mean, Crawford also wound up retiring, which we probably should have mentioned earlier, but he went to the Devils first, and they didn't take him back in Chicago, and I remember Jonathan Toews actually being really upset about that, saying, nobody told us this was happening, but no Toews this season, no Crawford this season. Kirby Dach, their young up-and-coming prospect who was the captain of Team Canada at the World Juniors. He wound up getting hurt in the first game, but no Kirby Doc this season, who's supposed to be taking another step forward this year. An aging defense, Duncan Keith is still there. I think he's still their number one. Nobody's taken that spot from him. And their goaltending really
Seabrook. Oh, the goaltending
is abysmal. It's Malcolm Subban, and I don't even know who the backup is.
Oh man, I knew this. Someone said it the other day, and I can't.
Is it Delia?
That's it.
It's Delia,
I was gonna say,
right?
I had Dell in my head, but that's
no, yeah, Dell is
that's
with
San Jose.
Yes, so it's Delia. No, actually, I think Dell moved on, but whatever.
Oh.
It's Delia and it's Subban, and it's really just a who's who in net. It's a bad situation in Chicago. I apologize to you and your fans, but you are officially rebuilding, guys. It is what it is.
They have a lot of problems, just like the cap. They like. Do they approach it kind of like Pittsburgh, where as long as Malkin and Crosby are on that team, you're going all in? When they retire and whatever, they decide they're not playing anymore, that's when you rebuild. It's just not worth it until, and they're not. The thing is, they have some good players there. DeBrincat, Kubli. Like it's not like they don't have some good pieces. It's just. I think on Seabrook and Keith are really expensive, and that hurts trying to rebuild. You just don't, especially right now, the next 3 seasons. I don't know how, the Islanders are in a different position where they can kind of jockey some things around. They're lucky that some deals are expiring this year or the following year. They can get it. They can still kind of find their way out of this. Other teams are in way worse position.
Yeah. Moving out to the West, I'm gonna go first with my best team here, and I'm gonna say it's Colorado. Out in the West, Nathan McKinnon is enough to make any team in their own division the best in the league, and the best in the division. And he does just that for Colorado. But I mean, after Nathan McKinnon, you have Mikko Rantanen, you have Gabe Landeskog, you have Nazem Kadri. You got a plethora of forwards there, and then talk about their back end. They just got Devin Taves, but their number one defenseman, Makar, is he's going to be the best defenseman in the league very soon. He was incredible last year. They're super young. Their goaltending is shaky, but I think the defense is good enough to make up for it, make up for that difference. So I'm going with Colorado to take the West this year.
I gotta go with Vegas. You add a guy like Shattenkirk, even though you add Shattenkirk, not Shattenkirk, Pietrangelo. Jesus. Some St. Louis defenseman that they're moving around all the time. Pietrangelo comes in. They lose Schmidt. They do have a good tandem in net.
The best tandem in net.
Yeah, I mean I mean, people aren't really super high on Fleury, but with a light workload between the two of them, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
So you lose Schmidt. You have Pietrangelo come in. Stastny's out.
He's in Winnipeg again.
He's back in Winnipeg. So
yeah,
they're an interesting team, and they're always right in the mix. I don't know how it's hard to not pick them for me.
It is for me.
I want Colorado to do well, but I almost wrote that down. I was like, I want Colorado to do well, so I think they're the best team, and that's not exactly how that works. It's who do you think the best team is? So I decided to I think on paper anyway. Vegas is just so deep. They just have so many young guys that have been around now through some success, and kind of went through some stuff. And I don't know, they can actually put it together for a full season. They're still really good.
You know what it is for me with Vegas? I tend to, when thinking about building a team, and I'm pretty sure this is the same way that Lamoriello talks about how he builds a team all the time. But you do it from the net out. So you solidify your goaltending, which they did. You solidify your defense, which they did very good. Then you start with the center core, and then you get the wings. Their center core in Vegas is pretty weak. They got Carlson there. They got the kid Cody Glass, who's up and coming, but he's not, quite there yet. And then after that, it's kind of just a toss-up. I think Cody Eakin is there. Couple other names that are serviceable, but Colorado up the middle, McKinnon,
up the middle,
Kadri,
they're much better.
Much
they're
better.
a good matchup for each other. They're gonna be the ones kind of fighting it out. And, maybe a good playoff series out of that division, or maybe
Yeah.
later in the playoffs. However, that's going to work. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I mean, you do have a Mark Stone.
Mark Stone's
and,
incredible.
and Carlson is really good. Marshall is really good.
Right.
Alex Tuck is really, their powerful guys are really good. I see your point where maybe like their fourth line drops off a little bit, but like Ryan Reeves has played well for them. I don't think it's not like he's scoring goals and doing all this stuff, but like they keep, it's like he's their Matt Martin. He's someone he's a character guy, and he's been around, there for a few years now, and they keep bringing him back, signing 2-year deals or whatever the case is. So, like if you looked at the Islanders and you were not a fan, like you didn't know, you'd maybe think of the same thing. Like
that's true.
Who are these guys? Like, I think that's kind of the struggle when we as fans are listening to other people dissect our teams, whether they're glossing over things or they're not high on a certain player or something, like they're not getting the respect. And why isn't Casey Cizikas on the? I think a lot of people don't pay. They're not doing their homework and studying it like we study the Islanders. Like, and that might be what we're thinking about. Maybe how I'm thinking about Colorado. How about you're thinking about Vegas? There's probably something, maybe Chandler Stevenson's really good and he's got huge upside. And
you're right.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
I'm not laughing at you saying that. I'm laughing because it's like I didn't even think of that. It's true.
The perspective on a lot of this stuff, it's not like when it's really easy and it's like, yes, Tampa Bay is really good. We also just watched them go through a series with the Islanders. We can pick that out really well. Some of these were hard. Some of these did require a little bit of homework. The way that, Vegas, I didn't think Stastny was a big loss, I think, up front. But if they have some guys that can kind of fill that in a little bit in a shortened season and just have like a good stretch, everyone just needs a good stretch, and they need to just have that consistency where everyone's kind of filling in the gap. Right. Their goaltending is super good. Adding Pietrangelo on the power play is not going to be bad. It's a good team.
Yeah,
I agree with you that I agree with you that Colorado is right there.
Yeah,
if not better. I prove me wrong. It's not gonna be heartbroken.
Going with the worst team in the West Division, I'm gonna have to say Arizona. As much as I want them to succeed, they lose Taylor Hall. They were kind of pushing for it last year. Let's get Taylor Hall. Let's try to make something happen here. They lose Hall. They lose Derek Stepan, who they traded to Ottawa. They got swept out of the playoffs real quick. They made the cut in the 2014 format. Their high-end players, such as Clayton Keller, they have yet to really pan out. Keller had a good rookie season, but he hasn't done much since. And there's not really that much coming through the pipeline. Darcy Kemper is a good goaltender, but Ronta can't stay healthy, and Hill seems destined for the AHL. I know that there were talks that the Coyotes were possibly looking to trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson this offseason, and they probably should have done that because
God, that's crazy.
I just don't see it happening for this team anytime soon. They got Phil Kessel, but he's like approaching, I think it was 36, 37. He might be 30, almost 38.
No, he's 33. Kessel.
Is he that young? Okay, so
he's been around a long time.
He has been around a long time. I think he broke into the league at 18 years old.
He probably aged an extra 5 years in Toronto.
Yeah, and that's the thing. His game has dropped off. I don't see the it factor for this team. I don't see, I just don't see it happening for them. I think that they probably should have gotten what they could have gotten for Oliver Ekman-Larsson this offseason. I know Boston was heavily invested.
Why are you doing that? Why are you he's 10% of the cap right now. He's 29. You signed the contract. Yeah. You're the team that signed the contract. Why are you not built again, when there's certain guys on your team and you have, again, like the Islanders window, they obviously have Barzal, Beauvillier, some younger guys coming up where there's kind of that second wave of the core. Mm-hmm. But as far as there's a shorter window for the Nelsons and the Lees and things like that, and the Everleys, where you got to put some guys out there together,
right? And they're not
to make it work. And
in Arizona,
why would you trade Ekman Larson, I don't understand why it doesn't make your team better. And you know what now, even if it was the cap went up to 84, 85 this season, it's not that big of a difference. They're still, I think they're at the cap anyway.
Yeah, they
Like
have it.
they're at $80 million. Like,
Yeah,
what were you doing anyway? I mean,
they
like
had
Kessel has another 2 years, then that's almost
right.
$7 million. Clayton Keller's probably an overpay, but he can come back. He's 22.
They have
But
like a
you bring in like,
plethora of middle six guys, right? Nobody really who's a top end guy. That's my thing with them. They don't have anybody who's going to change a game.
I'll say this. One of the bigger problems, probably just culture wise, and if we know any, if any fan base knows exactly how important that is, it's New York Islander fans. The change, the turnaround in just the way that the Islanders present themselves now with Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz versus Doug Weight, Capuano,
Yeah,
Snow.
absolutely.
And it's not so much anything against them as it is a credit to the current administration. But Arizona is a disaster.
Yeah, it really is.
So even if you had the right guys, is it going to work there? Like if you don't really have structure and it's just this constant, like something else, they're in the news for some dumb shit all the time.
Yep.
It's not really going to build confidence. Is the team staying? It's always something with them. And that's not going to build any kind of confidence. It's not like Yzerman going to Detroit. He had a good track record. He had some, years to rebuild them. And he's respected.
Yep.
He's got that track record. He can go in there.
Well, he built he built the Lightning.
He built the Lightning, like he was a huge part of
why they won the cup.
But I'm saying Detroit's, as a player, he was so important there. There's like a trust factor where, all right, they understand it's going to take a few years to get back to their former glory, and 20 something playoff appearances in a row, led mostly by Yzerman. They don't have that in Arizona. There's
right.
No one there that's like,
wow,
this is the confidence we need. This is the guy. This is the right thing. And GM leaves and this thing. And then the issue with the guy that they drafted this year, and the terrible stuff that he did. There's always something. They're always in the news for the wrong reason. And it just creates a really shitty culture around the team.
So, and this is something that, as we're recording, I'm remembering, we probably should have mentioned it earlier too. They did just bring back Shane Doan in their front office. He is now their chief hockey development officer. So, I mean, and look, I don't know if that's going to change anything for the direction of their future.
They tried to push him out the door.
Exactly. That's the problem.
And then, good on him for coming back. He wants to be on the team. He loves the franchise and all, but they tried to get rid of him. Like that was an issue. So I don't know. It doesn't. How
about the fact that they have Paul Bissonnette as part of their alumni? He's one of the biggest faces in the NHL media right now. Who's bigger than him? He's on Spit and Chicklets. Why are they not promoting him as part of Arizona? I think he's on their broadcast. Why are they not?
He's on the radio broadcast.
Yeah. Why are they not promoting him and bringing in money through him somehow?
He's kind of controversial. It's not it's not exactly like.
But he's not
Puck Soup versus ESPN, where it's very separate. Puck Soup is something that was been around,
but he's not controversial enough for New Amsterdam Vodka, who has a commercial with him. He's not controversial enough.
That's a vodka company. It's. I think it's a little bit different. The idea and the culture around the product it's just very different. Hockey is very reserved. That's why you don't see a lot of these that's why they're all Wonder Bread interviews for the most part.
Yeah.
None of them have these personalities that we see anyway. I know plenty. I've seen players. Obviously, like when they're partying, or not partying, like I've been there or something. But you see pictures, whatever. Like they're having fun. Like obviously they have a personality.
Right.
But, like at the rink or whatever, they seem they don't want to stand out. They want to kind of do. They're starting like the Tyler Sagans and these kind of things where they're starting companies and they're doing these things on the side while they're playing. PK Subban's been kind of doing this too. But with Bissonnette, he's a lightning rod. I don't know that you, as a team, you necessarily hit your wagon of that, because then he's always towing that line. And while, the league, the NHL does take advantage of him. He is in a lot of these videos. They did that, like, stick your hands in the box. It could be an animal. It could be Play-Doh, whatever the hell that thing was. The league is doing it, but, those things are way, way pulled back. And I think just being part of the broadcast is probably good for them. Again, I'm not in Arizona. I don't know. Maybe he's on like every commercial, and I don't know. I'll give the guy credit. I don't love his stance on things. I think he's a hypocrite, whatever, but he hustles.
Yeah.
And he's learned, and he takes it in stride, and he's not afraid to be told he's an idiot, and he learns from it. And I give him all the credit in the world for learning and, putting himself in a position to succeed. He's like, as somebody, we obviously don't have the same following as Chicklets. He's part of the reason now Barstool is a really good platform.
Yeah.
So that helped. But, they still had to take the ball and run with it. The door was just open. They did a good job in taking it from there. Coming from someone that's not a huge fan of that show, I can still say on an objective basis, they're successful. Yeah. It's hard to disagree with it. So, like I said, maybe he's doing more stuff in Arizona than we know.
Yeah.
But I don't know that turns around the culture problem.
Yeah.
We were talking about.
Regardless, this year is going to be a struggle for them. I don't think that they're going to come out on top of that division. But I think you disagree with who the worst team is.
Say that again.
I said I think you disagree with who the worst team is.
And this is in the
West.
Oh, yeah, the Sharks. Holy crap. So Marlowe's not been around. Evander Kane bankruptcy thing.
Yeah, that was tough.
So he may opt out of this season.
No, they just actually announced that he'll be playing.
So he'll be playing.
This just happened like 5 minutes ago. So it's not like we didn't prepare for that.
Yeah, not a stab at him. He needs the money. So I didn't see how he wasn't going to be playing, other than the mental the mental part of it. I don't know how you do anything that's your job with that kind of hanging over your head, but he seems like a pretty tough dude, so maybe he can get through it, and hope he does. It's terrible. It's more terrible that it's made public and made the rounds, and he's a public figure, but it's still tough to watch. So, all right, so he's back. We'll see how he performs under that stress.
Yeah.
They did bring in Dubnyk, but he's 34.
Yeah.
The Martin Jones is not good. Thornton is no longer there. Couture is not there anymore. Pavelski's not there anymore. Couture is still there.
Yeah,
right?
he's the captain.
So that they lost a lot of guys. They do have some players that are good, but they're just in some kind of way.
They still have Burns. They still have Carlson. But
he's another year older.
Right, but regardless.
Vlasic's older. Burns is older. Carlson's got to come back to form. He's not been the same since injuries.
They also
had
a
even
lot
turn
of
to the left.
They also had a lot of injury last year. I think this year, being a little bit healthier, Timo Meier is pretty good. He's a former 30-goal scorer. The kid Kevin LeBanc is pretty good. He's young. Logan Couture, if he can have a better season, I think he's pretty good. So I don't think that it's as bad as we think in San Jose. It's by no means is it good, and it's getting worse, but I don't think it's as bad as it was last year. I think they might,
even without Thornton. I know he wasn't
40.
like what he. I know he wasn't. It's just like he's a locker room guy. Anymore. He's what's that?
He's not a game changer anymore.
I'm not saying on the ice, and this is why my argument for Toronto includes him. He's a difference maker
in the locker room. I'll give you that.
The leadership, again, like when you have these teams, you need to, that's why there's a lot of GMs and coaches that they need that leadership. They want that veteran presence. It's a cliche up and down in the NHL, and it's nauseating, but it's still, we're not in the game, and it is important. And now, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Couture is the oldest, Molo is back. I'm sorry. They did bring him back. And he's just shell of his former self. So who's he playing with to make sure that he can, Thomas Hertl.
Thomas Hertl.
He's good, but the whole team they have a lot to prove.
I don't think they're nearly as bad as the Coyotes. Even I think they're a
Maybe.
little bit better than the Kings.
We're gonna revisit all this 23 games into the season
It's a good idea.
and see where we are.
We absolutely should. Let's move on to the North, the All-Canadian division. We won't see any of those guys until possibly April, right? That's when the playoffs start this year, April.
Yeah.
Every year, but they're keeping that trend going.
No, that's the trade deadline is in April. It's a
little later.
Yeah, because in May, June, July, the
you might be right.
Stanley Cup's getting awarded in July.
But the All-Canadian division, who do you got as your best team coming out of Canada?
I know this is like heresy on another podcast. I don't
do it.
On paper, and again, adding Thornton.
He's going to say it, guys.
Adding, I believe, TJ Brody on the back end.
He hasn't said it yet, but it's coming.
Frederik Andersen's playing for his contract next year. Old 32.
Here it comes.
I gotta say Toronto.
That's it. Banish him to the nether realm. Get him out of here forever. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a bad choice.
Having Thornton in the locker room with those kids. Now, look, you think whatever you want about Tavares. He was a good captain for us, and I think he was a good leader for Toronto while he's been there. Still a lot to prove so far. A lot of money for not a lot of output as far as results are concerned. They didn't make the playoffs last year. I love saying that. However, Thornton's a different level. You're bringing a guy like that. You bring in a guy like Simmons, who's going to be on their power play, who's going to be the net front presence, who says he feels the best he has in years. Another cliche, but he's tough as nails. In a 56 game season, give me Simmons. He's going to run through a goddamn wall for you.
Mm-hmm.
Bogosian, even if he's not in every night, the guy has a head like a freaking bison. Like they just kind of, I don't want to sound like Burke on Hockey Central, where like they're gonna toughen up, but they really did. They really solidified the bottom of their lineup. Although Thornton's playing on the first line, so that kind of moved some guys down too, which is also good. That's something that the Islanders were thinking. That's what the fans were hoping. Maybe add someone on the first line and kind of bump some guys on the lineup, and you solidify your middle six. I think they were able to do the same thing. And again, TJ Brody, it's huge. They were already a huge power play threat. They have someone to play with Riley. Defense, it's a bit of a problem. They were looking for Brody forever. They were looking for this guy, this type of player for a long time. I don't know how you bet against him. And I think I know who you're going to say. Before I even read it, I didn't even read it yet. I think I know who you're going to say. And I'm excited to it. I know the first thing you're going to say something about goaltending, but I'll let you go.
For what? What do you mean? What are you referring to?
For your best in the North.
Well, my best in the North is going to go to Calgary.
Right.
And I think that them getting Jacob Markstrom was incredible for them. It came down to, I think, Calgary and Edmonton. Talk about the Battle of Alberta. That choice to go to Calgary. Listen, David Rittich is a decent goaltender. He had 24 wins last year for the Flames, and they had an iffy year, ups and downs, but this team is so good and so tough to play against. I will take 12 Matthew Tkachuks on my team. That guy he might not be the flashiest. Actually, I shouldn't even say that because he scored a beautiful between the legs goal last year, but he might not be as skilled as a McDavid or
not
McKinnon.
The same finesse.
Exactly. He will bang the body. He's a rat. He's a rat. He's like a Brad Marchand, but he's bigger, he's stronger, and he's not backing down from anybody. He's the absolute. I know Mark Giordano is the captain. He's older, and once he retires, I'm pretty sure it's going to go to Tkachuk. He is an absolute leader in that locker room, and he's super skilled. He's so good. But they added Brendan Tanev. He's big, strong defenseman. They got, Markstrom is in there now, so the Markstrom-Rittich tandem is really good. Johnny Gaudreau had a down year last year, and he had 40 assists still. That's pretty insane to me.
People get on his case pretty easy.
They do, but he's still very good. You know, they're just they're a very good team. They're very deep. I like the additions they made this year. They got this kid Connor Zari who's supposed to be really good for them. I can't bet against this team. Their third goaltender is Louis Domingue, which is pretty good because he's good enough to be somebody's backup in this league still. And you know, as their third string goaltender who might actually see some time this year due to, you know, what's going on with the pandemic, you know, you might see Domingue get some starts for Calgary. And I think that they would feel confident with him in that. So
yeah, Markstrom, you know, I wonder if he can sustain what he did in Vancouver. The North is a tough division, kind of playing in that night in, night out. You're going to play Toronto in that offense.
Yeah.
7-8 times. You're going to see McDavid 8 times. You know, that division's pretty tough. You know, Montreal got a lot better. I don't dislike that call of Calgary.
I love Calgary.
Calgary was like St. Louis for a long time for me, where I'm like, oh, this is their year. They got to do it, like year after year, and they kind of like they fizzle out or you know, very quietly in the second round or something. Like they just don't quite ever take that step, and I think that's why they're questioning like that core of Goudreau or whatever and Monahan, like making sure that they can actually do that together. Maybe it's not the two of them, and they still have other good pieces there. So this is kind of a prove it year for everybody.
Yeah, and you know what I think happened there too? I think, you know, they lose Travis Hamonic because his contract was up. They didn't bring him back. But the acquisition of Tanev was almost like going back in time and getting him again. You know, it's same style of player. You know, he'll shut a guy down. He'll bang the body just as much as Makachuk. Very good in his own end. I just really like what they did this offseason, and I think that they're going to come out on top of the North Division. But here's where it gets interesting, because my least favorite team in this division, believe it or not, is going to be the Edmonton Oilers. And I know Connor McDavid, I know Leon Draisaitl, but they're without their number one defenseman all year, and their goaltending is awful. Like I said before, they struck out on Jacob Markstrom. They went all in on him. Didn't get him. They didn't come away with him. It's just going to be a real tough go at it for the Oilers this year, man. Maybe Yamamoto takes another step. I know he was good last year. Maybe he gets a little bit better. Maybe Puljujarvi comes around this time. Maybe he can finally come into his own. But it's all chance. Their defense is so suspect. You know, Darnell Nurse is pretty good. You know,
he's real good.
He's good. I don't know if he's number one defenseman good, but he's good.
I mean, he's the number one defenseman on that team.
No, that's Oscar Klefbom, and he's not part of the equation this year.
Right, as I say, like he is now.
Right, for now. Adam Larson's pretty good, but you know, he's not great. They have a couple of kids on the blue line, but that goaltending, man, it's brutal.
Koskinen and Smith is
and
suspect.
Neither of them are good in stretches. You know, they're gonna get probably split starts, but Mike Smith's pushing 40. Koskinen's been inconsistent. You know, I know. You know, upon first listen, you might say to yourself, the Ottawa Senators, but I really like what Ottawa's done. Like, I have them as a sleeper for the playoffs. They brought in Stepan. They drafted Stützle, who's going to be a stud. Have you seen this kid play? Did you see him in the World Juniors?
Yeah, he kind of dragged them kicking, screaming.
The fact that they got him at 3, I mean, don't get me wrong, Lafreniere, consensus number 1 pick. Quentin Byfield is going to be great, but this kid in any other draft would have been consensus number 1 overall. He could have went number 1 to the Rangers, and I probably at this point would have been like, yep, that makes sense. Lafreniere looks great, but this kid Stützle looks good, man. He looks really good. I like what Ottawa's done. They brought in Dadonov. It's a pretty good first line of Tkachuk, Dadonov, and Stepan. And then there's that kid Josh Norris who's there. He's pretty good. They got Drew Batherson. He's a young kid. He's pretty good. I like the addition of Matt Murray. He's going to be a pretty good stay-at-home goaltender there. So I like what Ottawa did. I think that Vancouver lost a couple of guys, but they're going to take another step. They have such a good young core. Like you said before, Montreal's got a good young core. Edmonton didn't do anything to progress. And I know that's so hypocritical because, like, well, what did the Islanders do? We'll get there. But they have two of the best players in the world. Not one, two. And they can't build around these guys. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I might have to change who I said to Edmonton because it's a lot of good points. The goaltending bothers me. The bottom six is non-existent. I don't know what like goal shares are with Draisaitl and McDavid are on the ice. You know, I feel like it's really, really high, where they're contributing to a lot of their team's points and goals or whatever. So yeah, I mean, like I was thinking, I don't know that they'll be I think, you know, thinking about it a little bit further, I had Vancouver originally, but only because you got to see how Holtby's going to do out there. Can their second goalie, Thatcher Demko, kind of step up when he needs to? Because you're gonna, you know, this is going to be a 1A 1B kind of season. Every team is going to be playing both of their goalies quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in Schmidt, but they I know that they lost some players. I wonder where, like, can everybody step up at the same time? Can Besser, can Pedersen, can all the Quinn Hughes is really, really good. Can they all kind of do it together at the same time? Can they kind of put something cohesive together? Again, thinking about them playing the same teams over and over, you can't escape it. Once a team, it's like, you remember when were you a center? You took faceoffs?
No, I was a left winger.
I remember being a center, and I thought I was pretty good at faceoffs. I was one of the guys that my team would put out there occasionally to do this on, take the faceoff, get off the ice kind of thing. And some games, another guy just has your number all game. There's nothing you can do about it. And you wonder if this season's going to be like that, where some teams just get another team's number and you're just losing the draw. And when it's 8 times, and Barry Trotz joked, you can see some of these teams 15 times if you go into the playoffs and play a 7-game series. It could be a long season against one of these other teams. I don't know. I wonder if Vancouver can just put it together for a full 56 in that division. That's kind of my. I don't doubt. You could be right. Maybe I'll stick with Vancouver, just to be different. But yeah, they're with a lot of those other teams and kind of stepping up. Ottawa, yeah, you're right. They know they're better than people think.
Yeah, they definitely
that's
are.
for sure. They have another Kachuk there too. So
Unreal.
it's
he's so good too.
He's really good. Yeah, well, I don't know what their goaltending looks like necessarily, but yeah, I'll stick with Vancouver for now.
Let's move over to the East Division where our New York Islanders play. Who do you got coming out on top of the East?
I honestly don't know.
It's hard.
I tried. I thought about it. There's a lot of people are putting the Islanders in that mix as one of the top 4 teams, which is really good. At first I thought, Washington, but they add Chara. He's tough on the back end. Their goalies are a little, Samsonov is good, but he was good platooning with Holtby. You wonder if he can be the guy. The Islanders exposed Holtby pretty good in the playoffs last year, winning that series 4-1. Pittsburgh, you hope that their goalie tandem can kind of hold up. Again, they still do have a Crosby. They still have Malkin. They just added Kapanen. So they have Gensel, a full season, a healthy season next to Crosby is really good. Philadelphia is just, Drew, Voracek, Carter Hart. They have that defenseman. I forget his name already because it's been half a year. Provorov. They can be really good. So there's a lot in the mix there. I honestly don't know who the best teams. I couldn't even venture a guess.
And I'm not being biased here. It's a very hard decision. It's the hardest division to be a part of. Let's just clarify that.
I would say that this is even though Boston's fallen off a little bit.
Right.
The Rangers are still good. Again,
right.
heresy on this podcast. They, Panarin still scored a ton of points. Zibanejad's going to be healthy this year. They have 2 really good goalies. They have some work to do. They have some spots. I saw Molly's article today, their second line wings and things like that. They need to kind of plug in different holes there, but they're not going to just, again, it's 8 times. You can learn a lot about other teams playing these guys.
Yeah.
The same way that you can, lose a bunch of times when someone just got your number. There's time to figure them out.
The thing here is, it's so close. A lot of people have Philadelphia pegged for this division. I look at what we did in the playoffs last year, and I see that we went toe-to-toe with them. They didn't make any crazy additions. They didn't improve their roster much at all. Nobody really did in the East.
Brian Elliott's the backup.
Right.
In games that he's playing in, teams got to take advantage of that.
Right. Nobody in the East aside from Buffalo made a major addition, right? Buffalo brings in Taylor Hall. We'll get to Buffalo, but as for everybody else, it's been minor additions. And the biggest addition for the New York Islanders might have been Ilya Sorokin, but also a full year of JG Peugeot, I'll say it again, is huge for this team. I have the Islanders coming out on top of this division for a couple of reasons. One, like I said, the rest of the division didn't make any improvements. The Islanders didn't either, really, but they've grown. They've grown a lot with that whole experience last year in the bubble. I know they lost Taves. I know they lost Boychuk, but guess what? Boychuk's still around. The glowing reviews that we're hearing out of camp about Noah Dobson, that like he's going to come in and from what I'm hearing, he's just going to step right in and he's going to be phenomenal. The Pulock-Pelech tandem is always great. Barzal is going to take another step this year, in my opinion. Beauvillier is going to break out this year, in my opinion. There's been articles left and right on him that he has superstar written all over him. Everyone's coming to camp in shape, hungry. They all seem to have grown in a positive direction. An upgrade in net from Greiss to Sorokin. That's your big addition. And I don't think – I just don't see how I have any reason to believe that they won't take another step, because that's all they have done every year since the new regime has been in, is they've taken another step. I'm trying my best to be completely unbiased. I really sat there and I thought about it, and I said to myself, am I going to pick the Islanders? And I am, just because of the fact that everyone else got a little bit older. So did we, granted. But I don't think our core, the team that is the core here, got old enough to be like, okay, they're going to start to regress. I think that everyone is kind of in that spot where the time to win is now. The time to win is right now. And I think that they absolutely can do that this year. Boston, we historically don't do well against them, but they lost Chara. They lost Krug. They don't have Pasternak for a little bit this season. I think Marchand's a little bit banged up. They're not as deep as they used to be. I think that this is the year they finally trump the Boston Bruins, and I think that they can take this division.
I think I'd be surprised if they did. I think they'll be in the mix. I don't see them not being a playoff team. They had a lot of these teams' number last season, and then they beat them in the playoffs when it counted. So you kind of hope that they can make that happen. And we were going to talk about this later, but it is a good segue. Do the Islanders' receipts provide proof of success in the upcoming season? So what you said, the growth that we saw in that kind of, I question it only because of the losses, and it's not like they were progressing with largely the same team. It is largely the same team, but we saw Komarov on waivers. We're gonna have some kids in again,
That's huge.
a full season, and that can be good, but it doesn't mean, to me, it's not the same team. Like it's just not all. It doesn't need to be 100% the same team, but it was really, you kind of plugged in, just kind of moved players around, and okay, this player is this player, and it all kind of worked out. I don't know. I think I've said this in the chat to you and Joe. I'm a little worried. I don't know that it's exactly, Taves is huge. He didn't have the greatest playoff, but I don't think he was a super liability or anything. Not having Boychuk around, they seem to succeed without him. You love Green, especially next to Dobson. I think he's gonna be a great mentor. Like that's good that they're together. Peugeot, obviously huge, especially if he gets to play next to one of the kids. I don't know. I want to see it first.
So I
want to revisit this in 20 games because they ended, the regular season 4-8-4.
Right.
And, then they played really well, but then it tailed off near the end. Like they couldn't finish Philadelphia as quickly as, I'm hesitant. That's what I'm saying. I don't have them leading the division by any stretch. They could, but that's not, I didn't even on a biased knee-jerk reaction just go, oh yeah, the Islanders, they're ready to go.
I didn't either. No. I didn't knee-jerk react and say to myself, oh, it's going to be the Islanders. I actually, upon first thought, I said Philadelphia, but I thought about it a little more, and I thought about, their roster versus our roster. Who did they bring in? It's another year. The experience that they each got in the playoffs. To me, the roster is deeper for the forward group than last year, which is a big deal. By that one addition,
you got to see who's on that line and how they do. And that's what I'm saying. There's that third line is fresh. I mean, Peugeot can make anybody look good. And
but that's the thing. Peugeot alone on that line makes it that much deeper. It wasn't the problem last year was that it was Brassard, and then it was Boudreau, and then it was anybody. Trotz even admitted last year too. He did Josh Bailey a disservice last year, moving him around so much. He was on the third line sometimes. That third line was a literal revolving door. That center position is so key to the consistency of rolling those four lines. That third line got probably less minutes than the fourth line on most nights.
Yeah.
I get being suspect of who's going to be shotgunning Peugeot, but him being there alone already makes the forward group that much better. This is going to be, and we'll get to this later, but I think the third line is going to be the best it's been in the Trotz regime. 1, 2.
In a long time. Forget about Trotz.
True.
In a long time.
Very true. In a very long time.
This is the best they've been down the middle.
This is the best chance for Michael Dalcol to succeed. He has not played with a line this good because nobody's centered that line as good as JG Peugeot. Also, a prospect like Kiefer Bellows, who's probably going to be in the lineup on opening night, has never played with a center as good as JG Peugeot. So he's just going to bring the guys around him up. And that's going to bring the level of the team up, because on the other end of the ice, they're going to say, where do I put my top pairing defense out? Who do I put him out against? Do I put him out against the Killer Bees because they're buzzing? Do I put him out against Matt Barzal?
They're arguably the best line.
They're arguably right. Do I put him out against Matt Barzal because he's the best player on the ice? Or do I put him out against JG Peugeot and he's just going to grind them down and make smart decisions and not let us score a goal? I think the forward group is so much deeper with the addition of JG Peugeot, and we didn't have him for most of last year. Most of last year, after the great 17 game point streak, was pretty rough. After we got him and he got acclimated and we saw him in the bubble, you saw what he could do. I just think the forwards are so much better this year just because of that one small addition that makes everybody else. It's the piece of the puzzle.
I got to see the consistency.
And
I think I'd said that.
And I get that.
The latter half of the playoff run versus the first half, or the first half of the season versus second half. It's a short season, and it's going to be a little bit of a sprint. And then they need to make sure that they can rest guys and all that kind of stuff to go into the playoffs, and then do all 7-game series that way. I'm gonna need to see the receipts
for sure.
That was it, because we saw what really good teams could do to them. Even Philadelphia, they still won 3 games against the Islanders.
Yeah,
it's not like they can't win games, and it's all 7-8 game series against these teams. So you don't want all of these series to go 4-3.
Right.
Just because you win them, that's not good.
Right. No, you're right.
So, or even 5-3. I don't think that shakes out to be very good.
It's going to be arguably the hardest year in a long time for them to come out on top, but I think that they're equipped to do it. This has been a little long-winded. We gotta get to our worst teams in the division still, but what were you gonna say?
We'll do that really quick. They gotta go 5-3 or 6-2 against these teams, and that's what worries me. Like you might go 4-4 with the Bruins, which would be kind of the best that they've done in a long time, splitting that series.
But the thing is, our opponents need to do the same thing.
Yeah,
they need to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. We'll go to the worst. What do you got?
Buffalo. Do I need a reason for this? Every year we wonder if this is going to be the year they turn it around, and they never do. Hall's a great addition, but they got to put it all together as a whole. That team hasn't done it. I haven't seen them do it. I feel like, and he hasn't come out and said it, but I feel like Jack Eichel is a little, upset with the progression of Buffalo. Until I see them put it together, it's always going to be Buffalo to me.
Even with the Stahl, Skinner isn't really living up to that contract. But
we'll see.
Addition of Stahl and Skinner, maybe they rekindle something.
Maybe, but right now
their goaltending wasn't terrible.
I think right now Jeff Skinner's playing on the 4th line because he had a bad camp.
I had New Jersey just because they're going with the Wedgwood Blackwood tandem with Crawford out.
I like Blackwood. He's good.
Yeah, he's good. Again, I'm thinking about you're trying to get guys to play 50 games in a regular season.
Yeah.
And maybe depending on the team, between 40 and 50 something games.
Yeah.
And with the condensed schedule, you're just not going to be able to do that. You just can't ride them that way.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for them. They're just a really young team with a lot of potential. He sure is really good. Jack Hughes is really good. They have a lot of room. They lose a guy like Andy Green. It's kind of, even in that case, it's just your captain and leadership. And although he's, like you said, he's played really well for the Islanders. He's played really well for the Devils through last year before the trade deadline. They just don't have it right now. I imagine Buffalo just has a little more experience. They'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
I don't think that they end up as the worst team.
I'm intrigued by the Devils. They have this new kid who they drafted him in the 5th round a couple of years ago. I think he's from starts with a B. Give me a country that starts with a B. And I can't remember right now. No matter. His name is Yegor Sharangovich, and he's kind of burst onto the scene. The Athletic did an article on him. He was drafted in the 5th round. He did pretty well for himself overseas. He captained I think a team in a world tournament. And now he's
Belarus.
Right, that's where he's from. He's from Belarus. Now I've been keeping tabs on him partially because I drafted him to my Dynasty Hockey fantasy team, but I've been keeping tabs on him, and he's having a really strong camp, and he's putting the puck in the back of the net, and they like what he's doing. He's on the first line right now. He's the left wing to Jack Hughes, and I could see how you picked the Devils to be last. They're without Heischer for a little while. I believe he got injured, and their goaltending is absolutely suspect.
Like Blackwood's good. It just he's not playing every game.
Yeah,
Well, he can play the majority of them, but you're still going to have a quite a bit of time where back to backs and things like that. They're just schedules condensed.
And I don't know how glued together the locker room is right now. Did you see the PK Subban Miles Wood tussle the other day?
Yeah, the last team that did that though went on win the cup that year, so I don't know.
That's true. There's also that. So
yeah,
the St. Louis Blues did the same thing. So watch out if halfway through the year the Devils are in last place. They got them right where they want you.
Yeah, we're right where they want us. It's they just seem really young and they have a lot to learn. I don't know. They just don't have it for me right now. They have some pieces to build around, that's for sure. But I don't think they have it. Not any more, slightly less than Buffalo, which is yikes. But
that's saying a lot.
Either one of them I can see struggling.
Yeah,
definitely.
Let's move on to On the Island, and we finally have some news about our very own Matthew Barzal. He signs a great deal, 3 years, $7 million average annual value. Unreal deal in my opinion. It's a staggered income, like I said, I thought it would be for every year. He makes $4 million in the first year, with a $1 million signing bonus, so $3 million cap hit, $7 million in year 2, and then $10 million in year 3. And then the qualifying offer for him to sign in year 3, I believe, is $8.4 million.
Yeah.
But he will have arbitration rights. He's probably going to be due for a little bit of a raise. You could see him, and in my opinion, he will sign a long-term contract with an AAV somewhere around 11, 12.
Depending happen on where the cap goes at that point. And things like that.
We'll talk about that in 3 years, because right now we have him for another 3 years. He will, or maybe still
sooner. He can still after the second year they can get it done.
That's very true.
I loved the confirmation that he wants to stay.
Yes,
that he wants to be on this team. I think that's really important. We've kind of heard that before.
Yeah.
But there's a picture of him and somebody, Everly or Lee, on the bench or something like that, and they were laughing and like hugging or something. Like,
it was awesome.
These guys really play for each other.
They love each other.
I don't think for a second there was any. I think they got lucky because I think someone would have, maybe made an offer sheet and made it interesting just because it was the Islanders, but maybe not against Lou. I don't know that you want to do that.
Well, that's what
I think that, seeing Barzal and the rest of the team and the way that they act towards each other, that the table tennis ping pong tournament in the bubble, these guys really love each other. They really play for each other. And that's maybe why they can be one of the best teams.
Right. Well, that's the thing. They have something especially here. Before I get to the breakdown of the contract, you were talking about the offer sheet, and it just came to mind. I think it's totally entirely possible that before this offseason even started, Lou probably, and this is just my opinion, I don't know this, but he probably sent out a message to the rest of the NHL and said, don't even think about it.
I don't even think he needed to do that.
Maybe his reputation, right? Maybe his reputation was enough in itself to send that message, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he sent the message, don't even think about it, because I will come down on you with the hammer of Thor. Listen, question him all you want, question some of his contracts, sure, fine. He gets it done, and he did. He got it done here. The price that I'll start by saying I agree with you. The high praise for where he plays, meaning from Barzal, he loves playing on Long Island. He loves playing with who he plays with. It's just there is no more question to, oh, is Matt Barzal going to want to move on because he plays in this boring system? No, he doesn't want to move on. Forget these Seattle narratives. I'm over all that talk. It's silly. But what's even more incredible about this is the $7 million average annual value. He could easily be making, and he will in year 3, but he could easily be making $10 million a year. This is just a really good deal. He becomes an RFA at the end of it. They can lock him up again long term if they want, which I again think that they will do. They put themselves in a position to be able to hang on to him as long as possible. It's just a really good deal for both sides. It's just a really good deal for both sides.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people are saying. It's what we said. We're no newsbreakers here, but that was a prevailing thought. 3x7.
Yeah,
they'll get it done. It's a matter of time. He may miss some time. We were all hoping it just got done before, but
yeah,
there's a lot of paper transactions. It's really complicated right now. And then at the same time, you can't wait. Like if a deal like for Timashov comes to the table, like you got to take it, even if you can't sign him right away. And
right.
you have outstanding deals and other things that you need to get done, and Martin and Green and Schneider, even in the AHL, and you got to sign Timashov. There's a lot of other stuff going on. I know that was front of mind for Lou. I don't doubt that for a second, but you're right. He got it done, and it looks like they're going to have, the kids really showed up this year, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. So it's nice to see it all kind of come together. Fans are kind of getting some answers that they wanted. Sorokin's here, Barzal's back. Some kids will be in the lineup. Some surprises on the back end. I think it's all good.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive news coming out of the Islanders camp. But let's before we get there, just talk about the roster announcements. Starting with the waivers on Sunday and Monday. Andrew Ladd, AJ Greer, Tanner Fritz, Austin Zarnak, Cole Boudreau, Parker Wotherspoon, Thomas Hickey, and yes, Josh Ho-Sang all hit waivers and they all cleared. Hitting waivers today, and I think it hit most of Islanders Twitter by surprise, was Leo Komarov. He looks to be bound for the taxi squad. I don't see him getting claimed, but it leaves the door wide open for an Oliver Wahlstrom or a Kiefer Bellows to take that third line. I think that it will be Dal Cole, JG Peugeot, and Kiefer Bellows on the third line. But Oliver Wahlstrom has the opportunity as well. I didn't see any transactions involving him yet, so I'll be interested to see what the opening night lineup looks like. I think Trotz is thinking that Dal Cole in his own end is enough that both he and Peugeot can make up for what one of the kids might be lacking. And like I said on Twitter earlier today, and John, I don't know if you agree here, and I said this earlier, but this is probably the best set of line mates Dal Cole would have had since becoming a full-time NHLer. So maybe this helps out his offense a little bit. Maybe he
doesn't need to be that guy. I don't think he needs. Like I think
he's
kind of an up and down the ice, north-south kind of guy. Gets the puck in, gets it back for Peugeot, who sets up the kid.
Right. I think that's the idea.
I think that's a pretty good makeup of that line. Though that
right.
if that's you need one skill guy, you need one of this, you need a setup guy, you need a playmaker, you need a grind. Like they seem that seems to mix well to me. Dal Cole needs to relax with the puck a little bit. He tries to get it off his stick as quickly as possible. But I think having some consistent time, not playing 30 games spread out over 6 months might help. Instead playing a little bit more consistently and maybe being one of two core guys that are in games every single night. And then having the kids kind of go in and out and get a feel for it with Wahlstrom and Bellows. Like you said, that third line will be the best. The kids playing with Pajot will be
Yeah.
really good. Trotz likes Dal Cole. He's not exactly a defensive liability. So I think that bodes well for that line.
Right.
He'll get the puck in and he'll go get it. He'll bang some bodies. He knows the system. He played a little bit with Pajot last year. I think that's going to work out.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a really good line. And you're right. He doesn't have to be that guy. He could just be the guy who's good in his own end, get the puck out of the zone, and do what he's done pretty well already. But let's not forget that he was a 5th overall pick in the NHL draft. Let's not forget that he put up a plethora of points in the CHL when he was down in juniors. I know that I'm not saying that he's going to become this top 6 forward, this guy who scores maybe 20 goals a year, but I'll take 10. I'll take 12 on the third line.
He's not played consistently in the NHL.
Right.
He's gotten games, they're racking up.
Right.
But it's not every night with really good players.
Right. And this is his
that makes
best
a huge difference.
opportunity to do that. And you look at a guy like Josh Bailey, and I tweeted this earlier today too. Josh Bailey was a late bloomer. Everybody was ready to write him off by this point in his career. I don't see why Michael Dal Cole, not saying he's the same player as Bailey, but I don't see why he can't also be a late bloomer and maybe come into his own a little bit. Take, an extra step this year. And if that step is just chipping in a couple of goals here and there and making sure the other team doesn't score, so be it. I'm okay with that. I think that I'm completely fine with Dal Cole being on the third line as long as it's with Pajot and Bellows or Wahlstrom.
I think it was hard for him to transition his game away from being kind of a goal scoring threat to being more of a middle 6 player or even a bottom 6 player.
Yeah.
When he's not playing all the time. It's one thing to transition. Like Bailey wasn't taken out of his element and told to change his game necessarily. I think he moved from center to wing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely an adjustment. But the style, I don't know that there was that much of an adjustment as far as how he thought about the game. Whereas Dal Cole, they're saying you're not doing this thing you did with relative ease in junior and maybe for your whole career leading up to that. You're going to transition away. You're not going to necessarily be thinking about carrying the puck over the blue line and making a play. You're going to do this. You're going to do the safe play, but then you got to go get it. You got to bang your body a little bit, and it might take a while to do that. And it doesn't help that he's not playing all the time. I know I've said that like 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
It just, I know that that's going to hurt him trying to figure it all out.
Right.
And if he's the guy, if he's one of the wingers on that flanking Pajot, and he's going to be there every single night, I think that makes a huge difference, and I think he'll play really well.
Yeah.
In that role, not 30 goals. And look, you never know. Filppula scored whatever it was, 20. 17, 20. It's not impossible. Dal Cole's a young kid. He's still got the energy.
That's
and if I was him, I'd be stoked to know that I was that guy.
Yeah, definitely. And that Val confidence can, help him take that step. Again, he doesn't have to be that guy. He could just be the guy, like you said, who is good in his own end, gets the puck out and does his job. But
yeah,
there are reasons for him to take a little bit of an extra step and maybe, have a better than mediocre year this year. I don't see it being completely out of the question. But good for him for not making just the taxi squad, but he'll be most likely in the opening night lineup on Thursday. But before we talk about that lineup, let's talk about who is going to be on the taxi squad. I know 1 or 2 guarantees here. It's going to be Schneider. And if Thomas Hickey doesn't get moved, because I know that they're still trying to move Thomas Hickey, he'll be there. And I should have said 3. Sorry, Leo Komarov will be there. There's seemingly 3 other spots. And it's pretty implied that Andrew Ladd's going to be there. And I believe Ross Johnston will be there too. That 6th spot is kind of a wild card, but I think it will be Timashov. Do you tend to agree there?
I'm not so like with Hickey, and I think I said it last week, and I keep reiterating it on Twitter. Staple agrees um, that Hickey will most likely stick around. That's a huge risk,
Yeah,
getting rid of that guy.
I agree.
Now, Bolduc seems to have stepped up, and
Yes.
he may be the seventh D, but it's a long season, and you may need two guys.
Yeah, it's
And
gonna.
you don't want to be caught with your pants down. That was a nice surprise, but to me, it makes sense to have three forwards,
Yeah,
two defensemen, and a goaltender on that taxi squad, or at least available. Now, the taxi squad may be Komarov, Hickey, Schneider, Johnson, Ladd, Timashov. That's six guys, and that works out to a lot of forwards. But it could work out if for some reason the
yeah,
kids don't work. They want them to get work, and they want to send one of them down to the A. They can call up Timashov to be the 13th forward, or
right.
Johnston to be the 13th forward. So there's room there, and one of them may be on the 13th, 14th forward. It depends on how the money works out. It depends on whose contract makes sense to be on
Yeah,
the NHL roster, who needs to go through waivers. You save $2 million on Ladd's contract, I believe. On Komarov, it's much less.
yeah.
On Hickey, I don't think it's all that much. So you're kind of moving players around and trying to make the money work too. If it makes more sense to have Johnston on the full-time roster than in the A, on a minor league contract on the taxi squad, it's all kind of complicated. So it'll maybe by the time you're listening to this, some of this has been fleshed out, and we're right or wrong on this particular part of it, because I kind of expected more players to be moving, but maybe the majority of them got moved yesterday. Timashov has not yet signed not the contract hasn't been announced, so that's kind of one of the last ones.
That's
Him and Schneider, nothing's official yet. The other ones have been leaked, and we know Green and
yeah.
whatever, but Timashov and Schneider haven't been, which is maybe why they weren't
So
sent down.
I'm not sure about Timashov's contract because in Staples' article a couple days ago, actually, he did say that he signed a 1-year contract. So maybe they're all signed, just not filed, is what maybe should have been the message that was sent. I don't know, but
Well, we said this. A lot of people were saying the same thing about Green. Oh, it'll be about $1.5 million, and then it was half of that, which is what we were saying. It'll probably be
yeah,
a league min. I don't see this guy. He's made his money. He knows what his role is.
yeah,
It's for Lou. Come on, it's not gonna be $1.5 million. Way too much. Now he can get bonuses, and there's all sorts of stuff, and it could count against the cap, and blah, blah, blah. But worse, it would count against the cap next year if it goes over a little bit, but that's neither here nor there at this point.
yeah,
But I Schneider and Timashov, yeah, I don't know. It could be the same thing where it's signed, and is it, or what is it? How much is it for? And
yeah.
there's like I said, the people might be listening to this, and this already may be fleshed out, but I was surprised to not see it today because they had to have that all put together, and
Well,
it
they
may just be
didn't.
for an announcement.
They didn't because they pushed back that deadline for final rosters.
All
So
right, we spoke about that.
whereas it would have been tomorrow, it's actually Thursday. So any LTIR transaction or anything, you're probably going to see those happen Thursday rather than tomorrow, the first day of the season. So it's very interesting. I don't know why they did it that way, but
Or
it'll
was it
be
yesterday, tomorrow, Wednesday, and instead of Tuesday, not necessarily Thursday?
I think
In the
yeah,
next
you
day,
might be right. You might be right.
in the next day or two, we will have more clarity. But
Yeah.
that's is where some of the confusion is, because not all the contracts were submitted or official, or are able to see it on Cap Friendly. So
Yeah.
it's hard to tell what exactly is left over for the Islanders to even use on these players.
Yeah.
Schneider won't count against the cap. It'll be completely buried in the A.
Yeah. The logistics of these contract negotiations are always difficult to figure out, but regardless, I think by puck drop on Thursday, we will have a clear picture of what everything looks like. But speaking of Thursday, we know what the top six is going to look like in the forward group. We know what the fourth line is going to be together. We know what the defensive pairs are going to be. And today, we did learn who the starting goaltender was going to be. I see we have here, who gets who gets the net on Thursday? And Trotz did say it's Varlamov's net. He's earned that right. He got us through the playoffs last year. He got us to the playoffs as best as he could last year. A couple of hiccups here and there, but he was very good in his first year. Now Ilya Sorokin's here, and what does that mean for starts? And listen, it's a condensed year, so either way, I think they're both going to get at least it's a 60-40 split. But I wouldn't be surprised if Sorokin works his way to a 50-50 and possibly taking over that starting goaltender role. Would you?
I wouldn't be surprised. I would hate to see how it happened though. Like I wouldn't want to see Varlamov have a fall from grace, and that means Sorokin's got to come in and kind of shoulder the load of bringing the Islanders back up in the standings. I would kind of want it to be like Sorokin just has a really good run, and he's playing well, and Trotz just kind of decides to give him extra games.
Yeah.
Not that Varlamov is playing bad, but Sorokin's just playing really well.
Right.
And just kind of sneak some more starts in there. I'm interested to see what starts he gets versus how many.
Okay.
I think that's you're playing a lot of the same teams. Like, are we going to see Varlamov play against certain teams and have Sorokin play against certain teams?
Interesting.
And then kind of go from there? Is that like the testing ground?
Yeah.
The first you're going Rangers, Bruins, Devils, 2 games. Maybe Varlamov gets the first 3, Rangers are probably no joke. Bruins are probably, they're no joke. Devils, 2 games in 4 nights. Okay. See what he's got. Maybe he plays 2 games there. Give Varlamov some rest between another 3 and 6, the 26th, 28th, and 30th against the Capitals and Flyers back to back.
Right.
And then there's a back to back between the Flyers and against the Flyers on the 30th and 31st.
Well,
so like
expect all
you'll
those
wind
back
up
to backs. You'll get.
You want to get Sorokin some touches before the back to back. You don't want the first game to be part of the back to back.
Right.
And
you want him to get his reps in.
And then it snowballs really quickly from there.
Listen,
and then it's like every other day.
I think it happens fairly quick. He hasn't seen game action since the beginning of March, right? When he came over a little bit. When did he come over? In the summer, right? The season ended
so it was
over
April.
Yeah, the season ended over in the KHL. Earlier than that, he hasn't seen a game in a long time. So I think that he's probably itching and really wants to get some action and not just practice and scrimmages. I think he wants to have that in-game intensity. I would love to see Sorokin versus Shesterkin game 2, because we know Varlamov's getting game 1. So that game 2 of the back-to-back against the Rangers, give me Shesterkin versus Sorokin.
I would say it depends on how Varlamov plays.
Yeah.
There's going to be, like I said, by game 4, they're playing the Devils. And they're playing the Devils twice in a row.
Right.
Within, with the day off in between.
And do they want Sorokin to maybe play twice in a row against the weaker Devils team? Is it back-to-back days or is it back-to-back games?
Not days. So they play on one day and then they have a day off and then there's another game. But so I'm like, maybe get him a couple touches. Then he has a few games off. And then they play the back-to-back against Philadelphia. I don't know. Maybe they just they do 2 games. Varlamov gets 2 games. Sorokin gets 1. He's going to play against good teams. I don't think they're afraid to play him against a good team. But I wonder, let him get his confidence. He get in there and get the first win under your belt.
Yeah.
I think the team will play well in front of him. The team is I think, comfortable with themselves defensively.
Yeah.
I don't think they never played differently, at least that I could tell, whether it was in front of Greiss or Leonard or Varlamov. They seem to play pretty well regardless. So I imagine even in front of Sorokin, it'll be the same defensive team that we've seen when they're playing well anyway. So I I imagine it'll be tough to tell until it's happening.
Yeah.
Once we see maybe a little bit of rhythm, I'm sure Trotz has a plan. So we're purely speculating. But I'd wonder. I wonder. You give the kid some confidence, get him some touches. You don't want him sitting on the bench. It's going to be hard to practice, with the condensed schedule like this too. So he's just not going to have the time and to be on the ice, and you want him to get used to the NHL pace and just get his feet wet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that about wraps it up for us this week, pal. Next week, when we're sitting here in these chairs once again, we will have plenty of action to have spoken about. The season starts for the Islanders on Thursday. So tomorrow, as you're listening to this, tonight, the season starts as you're listening to this. So get ready for some great on-ice action that we've been craving for such a long time. Back at it every week. We are no longer on the bi-weekly schedule. We are now back at it every week. So excited for that. Thank you to everyone for listening tonight or this morning. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Nassaumen Hockey and find our work at The Hockey Writers. You can support the show by picking up some NHP merch and donating through our Patreon. Our newsletter will be out this Friday once again with a weekly wrap-up of this week in the NHL and with the Islanders. So sign up and get started with getting those newsletters every week. Until next time, everybody, let's go.